Well, the mother and father of 3.5-year-old Lily Lees wants justice for their daughter. And quite frankly, prosecutors want that same justice for a little girl who was hit and killed by her step-grandmother accused of driving while high. However, justice here might be limited.
There's no words. You can't explain perfection. You can say a million things over and over and over and explain her in 100 different ways, but there's no way to describe who she was.
Life has not been the same for Joanne Salas and Cody Lees since the death of their 3.5-year-old daughter, Liliana Lees, or Lily. Lily's step-grandmother, Nicole Lees of Warren, is accused of running over Lily a year ago. She's accused of driving high. However, with no limit set on how high is too high to drive on the books, prosecutors say they are only able to charge her with a misdemeanor in Lily's death, up to a year in jail.
She killed our baby, and what we feel gets nothing, like a slap on the wrist.
Macomb County Prosecutor Peter Lucido is working with Representative Pamela Hornberger to set a THC level for impaired driving.
Would that make your case easier today?
Absolutely. 100% would have been a real easier case as it relates to how high is one too high to drive a vehicle, even if it is just moving a car 6 feet.
We've already had, that we know of, one child killed by a person who was strictly under the influence of THC. No alcohol in their system, no other drugs in their system. So no, it's not an option.
The current bill calls for 5 nanograms per milliliter of blood, but setting a limit on THC while behind the wheel, like we do with alcohol, is a bit more complicated.
This is a very difficult question. It certainly can impact many, many people.
Norbert Kaminsky is one of 6 who sat on the Impaired Driving Safety Commission for the state between 2017 and 2019. The commission, made up of professors, physicians, and representatives from the Michigan State Police Department, determined no legal limit of THC should be set. Kaminsky, who is a professor of pharmacology and toxicology at Michigan State University, explains THC remains in the blood system even after a high has dissipated. He says even heavy marijuana users can have THC in their system for days. The concern?
We also don't want to charge people with impaired driving if they're not impaired. And you can imagine somebody who is above that legal limit several days after they've, smoked cannabis are not going to be impaired anymore, but they certainly would be over some of these limits that, we're discussing.
Instead, determining if someone is high is left to a sobriety test conducted by law enforcement. However, Lucido says a limit would strengthen legal cases for those who do drive high.
We lost a little girl. Lily's a little girl, and that's what this law is about.
It's really important to us that something gets done so nobody else has to wonder what's going to happen or deal with somebody doing this to somebody that they love, and there's no accountability.
Representative Hornberger says that the 5 nanograms proposed here is just a starting point. She and Prosecutor Lucido are hoping this bill will at least start a conversation here in Michigan to try to set the limit. Now, both say if other states can do it, Michigan can do it too. Kaminsky did tell me he does feel there's room to develop more accurate ways of determining impairment in roadside sobriety tests. That being said, Lucido tells me there is a lack of law enforcement properly trained to conduct those sobriety tests for those who choose to drive high.